What's up everybody, Matthew Monas here, and a couple of days ago I got to go hands-on with two upcoming Sony smartphones. These are the phones that were announced today at IFA. The first one I want to talk about is the XZ1. This is the successor to the XZ Performance that was released last year. And I mean, from a design standpoint, not much has changed except for the overall size of it. Instead of 5 inches or 5.1 inches or whatever it was last year, it's now 5.2, giving you a little bit more screen real estate. But the design itself hasn't changed much. It's still that boxy, classic Sony look. I really wish Sony would have took advantage of this here and completely changed the design. We're now moving to the point where we have bezel-less screens that are 5.8 inches that are pretty much the exact same size and width as this smartphone. On top of that, there's a headphone jack, which is great. It seems to be a feature these days. There's a USB Type-C port on the bottom. You have that fingerprint scanner on the right side, which is not that great if you're left-handed. And of course, the phone itself is IP68 certified, making it water resistant up to 1.5 meters for 30 minutes. Thankfully, Sony continues to put their dual speakers on the front of the phone, so you're gonna get some really nice sound when you're watching movies in landscape mode. They do say the sound has improved since last year by up to 50%, so I can't wait to actually test that out. And since we're on the topic of sound, there's an improved DAC inside, so you're gonna get high-res audio, you're gonna get great sound when you have your headphones plugged in, and even if you don't use regular headphones and you use Bluetooth headphones instead, you're gonna take advantage of LDAP, which is Sony's proprietary Bluetooth protocol to get much better compression, offering you improved sound overall. Now let's move on to the display. It's 5.2 inches, but it's only full HD. And I looked at it, I don't see any pixelation, and I suppose for a screen that size, it's absolutely fine. But I know some of you out there want a QHD display on a phone of this caliber. Now it does support HDR, which is great. So if you watch Netflix or Amazon Prime Video and some of the TV shows or movies that support it, you'll be able to take advantage of that. In terms of performance, it comes with the latest Snapdragon 835, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and of course a micro SD card slot. It felt very snappy with the little time that I had with it. It's running a pretty clean version of Android 8.0, so it's going to be one of the first smartphones out of the gate running the latest version of Android. But the main attraction has to be the rear-facing camera. It's 19 megapixels, just like the XZ Premium. It's a G lens, has an aperture of f2.0, laser autofocus, and of course Sony's steady shot 5-axis image stabilization. So it's not optical, it's electronic, but Sony's implementation does a fairly good job. Now what's so cool about this camera, besides the camera photo quality, is actually the fact that it can take 960 frames per second. That's insane. The slow motion you can get from 960 frames per second beats the DSLR or mirrorless camera that I'm using right now. In fact, I'm using a Sony a6500 and the most I can get is 120 frames per second. Now, essentially, it's only in 720p, but the fact that a smartphone can do that is super impressive. But the coolest feature about this phone, and this is the first on a smartphone that I know of, is their new 3D scanning technology. So essentially what you can do is take a panoramic scan of someone and turn that into an object. You can do this with a cup, you can do this with any physical object or even a person, as long as they're completely still. We did it with myself. I thought it looked pretty cool. I mean, it's not perfect, but the fact that a smartphone is doing this is pretty impressive. And then you can take that 3D object, you can share it across social media, you can incorporate it into your pictures or even send it to a friend. Eventually, Sony wants to be able for you to take that object and actually physically print it out on a 3D printer. And the last thing I want to mention is the battery life. Inside there's a 2700 milliamp battery. So it seems a little small. I'm quite nervous how the battery life will be, but we'll find out once I get a review device. And the second phone I want to talk about is the XZ1 Compact. This used to be one of my favorite phones back in the day. It was super small, it felt comfortable to hold in my hand. But I don't know how it's gonna do today. I mean, bezels are getting a lot thinner, even though the screen size are staying bigger, and big phones are starting to feel very, very small. So I'm not sure if there's still a market for the compact phone. Either way, in terms of specs, everything is pretty much the exact same thing as the regular XZ1. The only difference is that the screen size is a bit smaller. Instead of a full HD display, it's using a 720p display. The battery size is the same. The CPU is the same. There's no 3D scanning technology like the XZ1. And instead of 64 gigabytes of internal storage, there's only 32. Oh, and the last thing I want to mention is that the front-facing camera on the XZ1 Compact has 2 modes. So you can take your regular front-facing selfie with kind of like a narrow perspective, or you can press a toggle and switch it to a wide view in case you want to fit more subjects or let's say some scenery in the photo. So that pretty much wraps up my hands-on and first impressions of the XZ1 and XZ1 Compact. I want to hear what you guys think of them in the comments below. Also, make sure you click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be notified when I actually do my full review. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I will see you in the next video.